we could take bishop d2 will be played, of course. And then we can take on d4, and then we can take on c2, and then we can take on d2, and then our king is not getting checkmated. Hello everybody, my name is Emil Stefanov, International Master, and in this video I will walk you through weekly scenario number 26 in Noctie. Let's get started. Another week, another great position from the FIDE Candidates Tournament that happened earlier this year. We got this position from round 14 of the game between Andrey Esipenko and Fabiano Caruana. It was a sharp Sicilian Najdorf that transposed more into a dragons type of setup, and Caruana played Rook takes c3, the typical sacrifice, exchange sacrifice for Sicilian players, and as you can see, that has significantly weakened the pawn formation around the enemy king. Now, we are down the exchange, however, we also get a beautiful outpost for our knight on c4. And last but not least, although white has pushed this f-pawn all the way to f5, really the biggest danger in these positions is when the h-file opens up. Because if the h-file opens up, that means the rook on h1 will also open up. And our king will be in a little bit of a danger, to say the least. But here, it just doesn't feel like white actually is able to pose pretty big troubles for us, at least at the moment. So that gives us sufficient time to organize our attack on the enemy king. Now, how do we do that? Well, we already have the queen lined up on the semi-open c-file. The knight is very dangerous, as we already mentioned that. And this bishop on g7, although currently a sleeper bishop behind this knight, at some moment I'm anticipating we'll be able to reroute this knight somehow to a4, or maybe reposition it to e5, go to c6. All of these options are possible. a5, a4 is also possible. But the move that I'm going to start with is the most logical move to me, which is rook c8. See, whenever you're attacking, it is actually important to involve all your pieces into the attack. So I believe this rook c8 move is actually really good. It just puts added pressure into Noctie's position. And Noctie goes ahead and plays bishop takes f6. That's a little bit of a surprise to me. And the reason it's a surprise is I just talked about how this bishop was a sleeper bishop. But after bishop takes f6, once we recapture bishop takes f6, now it's no longer a sleeper bishop. And that dark square bishop that Noctie had was maybe quite important to try to defend some of the dark squares in the position. We see g5. So that's actually a good move by Noctie. I'm playing Noctie at difficulty bishop 4, and finding this move g5 is actually really impressive to me. Why is that the case? Well, if we take it, not that it's a mistake, but long term we do open up a file against our king, so most likely we don't want to do that. What if we go back to g7? At some moments maybe Noctie is looking to play f6, lock our bishop on that square. So the only other two moves that I'm thinking about are bishop e5 and bishop takes d4. Bishop takes d4 will regain us the exchange, but I believe that's exactly what Noctie's trying to do. He's trying to get rid of my powerful bishop, and I don't want to part ways with my bishop quite yet. So I could take once again, but I'm going to just go bishop e5, although I do need to be a little bit careful with this idea, but I do have my bishop there, so as long as I keep my bishop, everything's going to be great, and as we can see, a great move. Let's take it simple, one step at a time. Let me play a5, a4, and maybe only then I'll consider taking the rook on d4, which will open up the file as I already mentioned. That's kind of one of my goals there. So f takes g6, a very logical move. And now we have a decision to make. Do we take hg or do we take fg? On the one hand, if we take fg, we do weaken this diagonal, but there's not immediate ways that Noctie can utilize that. On the other hand, if we do take hg, there is potential for the h-file to open up later. So we do have to be a little bit careful. Time is going to be of the essence. So how fast can we get our attack going is going to be the big question in this position. So if we take hg6, h4, a5, h5, a4, as you can see, we're pushing on each other's sides. Takes here. Wait, did I say that correctly? h4, a5, h5, a4, takes. We take the knight. Takes here. Ooh, yeah, it's a little bit messy. I mean, I have king f8. Again, my bishop's pretty good. So we'll take hg. If uncertain, we can always click on the show ideas button. Although I'm pretty sure Noctie would have just told us hg6 and fg6. Both moves were probably going to be fine. But for now, let's see how hg6 turns out. If not, we can always take back and retry it again. The purpose of these weekly scenarios is to practice, right? So we have unlimited amount of tries that we can go for. We have an unlimited amount of take backs as well, although I do recommend only taking back if you just missed a tactic on one move or something like that. Usually I recommend the take backs only for those purposes. So rook f1, okay, so it makes sense. Noctie disregards the h4 idea, and then maybe he's going to be trying to put pressure on the f7 pawn, but I will play e6. That queen will cover the square, so no problems there. So I'm just going to play a5 and just go for a4. As I mentioned, that's kind of my plan. I just want to get rid of this knight, and from there, maybe then I will give up my bishop. Let's go e6, excellent move. As I already mentioned, that was my intention of protecting my f7 pawn, and I am really liking my position a lot. Let's see what Noctie is going to do. Noctie eventually played rook d3, so it's looking for f3, rook f3, and full pressure on my f7 pawn. Okay, this is where it gets interesting. I would not want to play rook f8 if I can help it, to try and defend my pawn passively, although I could. If I play a4, rook f3, ab3, rook f7, ooh, it almost feels like we should have some sort of checkmating capabilities. Maybe we take this pawn. But there is king c1. That's a little bit of a sneaky move. Although we do have knight a3 there. And that seems to work like a treat. Okay, we're going to go for it. We're going to go a4. As always, we do need to calculate a few lines. But it should work out after rook f3. Knight d4. Well, that was kind of the idea with rook d3 as well. So maybe a4 was indeed some sort of a mistake maybe. Now it's actually getting a little more complicated than I would like it to be, especially after rook f3 possibilities. We still have knight a3, so nothing to fear there. We still have b4 and bc3 with potential to checkmate. So yeah, let's just keep opening up the position, yeah? Shall we? Oops, there we go. b4, as you can see, great move. Again, the whole purpose is just to open up the position as much as possible. C takes b4, yep, that makes a lot of sense. And now we have a few good moves. So we could try to give up our knight, take this one, and then queen c2, but there's nothing else happening there. We could try to play a3 as well. That seems like a good move. Okay, so I think this is one of those moments where I was talking about the takebacks. This is where we do it. I thought maybe we have a lot of tension on the enemy king there. And a3, I felt like, okay, maybe we have some knight a3 at some moments. But yeah, now that I think about it, maybe c3 would just lock everything up. Let's go ahead and go back. So let's use the take back as I was talking about it. And let's address this problem, because this is actually a very, very uncomfortable problem to deal with. So let me put my knight on e5. If I can put my knight on e5, then I'll be dealing with that problem. So let me go bishop g7, as we can see, excellent move. And we will have knight e5. We're not worried about this pawn because we do have the ability to pin the opponent back. So we will win back the knight there. Rook f3, there we go, knight e5. This is what I was hoping for. And we are able to cover the f7 square and attack the enemy rook. So now our ideas with b4 will probably be more successful than before. So I'm assuming rook g3. Rook e3 is the other move to keep the c3 pawn protected. But of course, once we play b4, we will open up the diagonal. Rook f4 is chosen by Noctie. That kind of shocks me a little bit. Mainly because I have queen c3. But maybe I am walking into the check. King h7. It is quite a messy position there. There is some rook f4. So maybe I don't go king h7. Maybe I go king h8. So I'm able to utilize my bishop. Sometimes we will have to face some very concrete lines. And as always, we can use a take back. We can also use the show ideas button. So as you can see, b4 and queen c3 are the moves. I was thinking of queen c3 mainly because this I believe I survive, and not only do I believe I survive, I think we're actually winning in that line. Simply, the king is not able to escape. I'll take this, and then I'll go king h8. And the reason I want to go king h8 is because I want to be able to... Ooh, king h8. I don't want to be pinned. That's my whole goal. Because if I go king h8, rook f4, not being pinned helps me to play queen e4, queen e1, and bishop takes d4 check, which is pretty important to me. And king h8 takes... Again, I do have to be a little bit careful. If I take there, there's queen h5 and queen f7 perpetual check. It's never that easy, is it? Queen g6. I'll go king h8, queen g6. I think Noctie is able to make a draw, unfortunately. It's a very chaotic position. We do have the check, but that's actually not what I want to play. Queen g6 seems like Noctie's going to be able to hold down some draw, which is kind of unfortunate. Okay, if I play queen d4, that was my idea, but man, I'm getting perpetual checked, so I actually need to address that. Okay, luckily I have this move. It came down to the wire. Luckily I had this move, and I'm able to attack the rook and cover queen h5 checks. So now the knight's actually hanging. And if rook f7, that's the problem. I'm gonna give a check, and then I'll have a check with the bishop as well. Rook d1 has to be played because of that. Yep. And now, so don't go back, obviously. We'll get checkmated there. Okay, it's still not entirely obvious. We want to take, and we want to be able to win the rook somehow, but currently I don't want to take because that will allow my king to be exposed. I'm actually quite fond of queen h2 because I am attacking the knight, and at the same time, well, I'm putting pressure on the c2 pawn. That's really the goal there. a3 also looks like a very viable move because I'm threatening to take in queen h1. So both of these moves are on my radar. I'm actually in favor of this one, but let's see what Noctie says. a3, slightly better. Rook f8, which I don't want to move my rook from that open file. Ooh, okay, but it's actually a great idea to play rook f1, get rid of the rook, and then eventually take the knight. That's pretty high level there. But bishop takes d4. Noctie's saying it is winning. I'll tend to believe it, but I don't quite see. Maybe it's takes, queen f1, king b2, a3. Maybe that's the move we're missing. King takes a3, queen c1. And we're assuming that there's going to be some sort of a checkmate there. Yep. Okay, that's actually pretty good, yeah. So a3 was one of the moves I was thinking about. Of course, we got to be very certain that this works, right? Queen f1, a3, king takes, queen c1 check, and king b4, queen b2 check, and if king b3, queen c2 check. So it seems to be working. So let's go ahead and do it. Bishop takes d4. I'm assuming Noctie's going to play queen h6, trade the queens, and from there on, we will be able to win the game. It took us a little bit because Noctie was able to counterattack very nicely. But yeah, queen f1, a3 next move. As long as Noctie doesn't play rook d1, a3. That's kind of the move. That's really the move that we need there. Otherwise, we're going to get perpetual checked, and we don't want that. So, yeah, should be able to go queen c1. And the thing is, everything happens with check. Check, 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 check. If king b4, queen b2, king a5, rook a8 check, and then another check. So everything's coming up with checks. That's the unfortunate thing there for Noctie. Yeah, king b3, queen c2. And yeah, we're first to win the rook. Yep, there we go, queen b2. Okay, make sure that we actually do take measures and play rook a8. If we didn't, there was some queen h6, queen e6, losing our rook. But in this way, we're actually able to take the enemy rook with check. And this king is very much in a mating net, so it will be game over in a little bit. Let's see, king b5, king b7, king c6, king c7. All of these moves we have, except king b7. We have queen c5 against those moves. So here there's a checkmate. And here we do have the check, goes to d7. We have another check, goes to e6. We have queen e5 checkmate. So Probably there's also other fast ways to do it, but that one seems very much easy to me. So rook a7, king e6, queen e5, checkmate. And if king e8, queen c8, checkmate. And if king d8, we have queen c7, queen e7, checkmate. So there we go. We did it, although it was a little bit scary. So let's go back and try again. Alrighty. So we already know our move is going to be rook c8. Now we're playing against rook difficulty 3. So we've increased it a little bit. And bishop c1. This, as far as I remember, was what Andrey Esipenko went for. And not taking on f6, meaning our bishop is going to take a while to become active. Obviously, we could reroute the knight to d7, b6, a4. That was one of the options. And the other option is the a5, a4. That I already mentioned. That looks pretty good in the sense that we're attacking very successfully. There is also rook d3 that we need to deal with. So I'm actually in favor of starting with knight f d7 now that d7 pawn is no longer under pressure. And then a5, a4. But I guess a5, rook d3 is always the response, so that the knight can be placed on d4. So it might actually be okay to start with knight f d7. As we can see, good move. Again, it's not about giving up our dark square bishop for the rook. h4, that makes a lot of sense. So maybe we should have started already with a5 earlier, but let's go a5, a4 now. So we are going to be faster once again with ab3. That move again played in the game. This time I'll take fg6. I will keep the file closed, as close as I can. h5, a4, hg6. We do have hg6. We also have ab3, and just tuck our king away on h8. That also works out, I think. Okay, so Noctie really is going down for it, right? Like this is it. Like it's now or never for Noctie. This will use the pawn as an umbrella. That's a great idea. And queen h4 to try to attack us. If we don't see the checkmate, again, we have knight f8 or knight f6. So I'm actually quite optimistic of taking the pawn. If you're scared, you can always click on the show ideas button. If this move is suggested, then you know that it's good. And it's kind of the only move we have. As I mentioned, we got to take ab3. We went on this adventure. So maybe knight f d7 wasn't the best move, or knight d7. We could have just started with a5, a4. cb3, so we can see the power of the bishop. Now the bishop restricts a knight a3 checks. So that's kind of unfortunate there for us. But maybe... Okay, maybe I thought I had some tactics, but unfortunately I don't seem to have any. So because of that, we'll have to go back knight e5. And so knight f6 was kind of a wasteful move there, I guess. Let's go knight e5. We do have two minor pieces, two knights versus a rook. As long as our king survives, we are perfectly fine in this position. And we will use this pawn as an umbrella. Very nice, very nice. G takes h7 was the move that I was least worried about. Rook h7 felt a little bit scarier to me, although we should still be fine. And as you can see, rook h3, Noctie overprotects the c3 pawn. So now the position has really transformed. It now is all about keeping our king safe and slowly but surely utilizing the extra piece that we have, basically. So we're able to maneuver more pieces, and Noctie is able to maneuver less pieces due to us having two knights versus a rook. Yes, we do have only 3 pawns, and Noctie seemingly has a lot of pawns. So actually 6 pawns versus 3. So it's a rook and 3 pawns for the 2 minor pieces. But this pawn is very weak, so we actually don't count this one too much. And again, this king is a little bit more weaker than our king. Looking back on it though, knight d7 was definitely not the best move. So with that out of the question, let's go ahead and think about what we can do. We could play rook f8, just try to go for some knight f3. I know there's some cheap tricks, but they might work out, you never know. There's also knight g6, just retreating it back, but I don't really want to capture here. There's also knight c6, putting the pressure on the rook, but really what I want to do is bring this knight forward. The unfortunate part is I don't really see the forward capabilities of that knight. Maybe some rerouting, but that's about it. We could play rook f8 and again try to utilize the rook f3 idea. knight c6, the only thing that I like about knight c6 is it opens up our bishop. So actually I like that a lot. But at the same time, I'm assuming Noctie will play bishop b2 at some moment and very much try to trade those dark square bishops. Currently though, I think this is a good idea. Let me check what Noctie is saying. Yes, a lot of moves. Knight g6, one of the moves I mentioned. Rook f8, one of the other moves I mentioned. Knight c5, knight e6 idea. So knight c6, not so mentioned. I do like rook f8. I do like the just immediate attack on the f3 square. And basically in a way forcing either queen e2 or just having to move this rook. Queen e2, the logical move. And again, this pawn's kind of weak, but we could play queen c6. And yeah, just kind of put pressure there on this pawn, so the rook will not be able to move as easily. So something like this, knight g6, get rid of this rook. It's a long plan, but it might work out in our favor. I think we redo this again, yeah? I felt like we had tension, but now that I'm thinking more about it, it doesn't feel like we'll have much to accomplish. Mainly because I'm always worried about this idea of trading the dark square bishops, and my king's going to become extremely weak. And I don't have the greatest outposts for both knights. I have one great outpost for one knight, but not for the other one. So let's go ahead and go back a while. So let's go back all the way here. I know Noctie was suggesting a b3, but what if we start with hg6 and basically say, okay, like, you don't have queen h4, queen h7 checkmate because we'll dodge and block one more time. And actually, that's what Noctie is doing. Maybe we'll have to play knight f8 just to really safeguard the king. I think that's what happened in Fabiano Caruana's game. If I take, again, the problem is check, and then there's another check. It becomes very chaotic, doesn't it? g5, although the pawn's hanging. Maybe safest is just to go knight f8. Bishop h6 will be a trade, but then the king will start running as before. So let me go knight f8. As you can see, knight on f8 equals no mate. So everything's covered. The e7 pawn's covered. Okay, this knight now has to move. I think finally we're doing it. I think finally we are achieving it. So knight d2, played by Noctie, but this pawn is extremely weak. So okay, this looks a little bit... It almost works, but it doesn't quite work out. I think queen c3, bishop b2, queen c2, king a1, the king survives there. It would have been fun if it worked in our favor. Unfortunately, it does not. So we could take bishop d2 will be played, of course. And then we can take on d4, and then we can take on c2, and then we can take on d2, and then our king is not getting checkmated. We do have king e6, rook f8, but rook c1. Did we follow all that? I hope we did. Okay, let's start with knight d2. Noctie didn't like it necessarily, but after bishop d2, bishop d4, I think we finally were able to... Oh, rook d2, of course, it will protect this way. But now we just play queen c3, and now that's just game over. There's no way to stop queen a1 checkmate. So we managed to finally succeed, but it took a while, and we had to go in the wrong direction first. Knight d7 again is probably the move that I'll criticize the most, mainly because it's not the worst move there. Okay, now there's just a checkmate. It was a good game, as we saw. We managed to utilize our bishop. That was kind of the piece that we needed the most in the attack. Of course, the rook there was important. If Noctie had taken bishop d2 earlier, so just so that we were able to put pressure on the c2 pawn as well. But in your games, what I'll recommend is you be very careful. As you can see, even lower difficulty Noctie is posing some troubles to me with just trying to throw the pawns, open up files. And if we're not careful, then our king kind of gets in danger, or Noctie just got enough pawns and a solid compensation. But this plan with a5, a4 is really the killer plan. It just offsets the knight on b3 enough to where it throws off white's defenses. And of course, make sure to utilize the c-file. Whenever you do get attacked, just be very careful. As you saw, f and h files opened up, but with this formation, we were able to survive and continue to put pressure on Noctie. So good luck in your games, and I'll see you in the next one.